JudgeCast. This is episode 19 of our series of YouTube videos focusing on how to become a level 1 judge. My name is Bryan, and I'm joined this evening, afternoon, morning drive to work by the one and only Charles Feather.
Hello, hello.
And the one and only Marcos Sanchez.
Hello, everybody. So let's start off, as always, by giving a shout out to our sponsor. This episode and entire series is sponsored by Judge Foundry. Judge Foundry is a membership-based nonprofit organization serving the US and Canada in providing certifications for tabletop gaming officials. They manage everything to do with obtaining and maintaining your certification and provide educational resources just like this one to ensure that every Judge Foundry certified judge has the knowledge and skills that they need to be successful. When it comes to running Magic events at your local game store or at a larger international convention, Judge Foundry is a great resource for you to certify your skills. For more information on Judge Foundry, visit judgefoundry.org and click on the orange Become a Judge button to find out how you can earn your level. You can also join the Judge Foundry Discord to chat and interact with the Judge Foundry judging community in the US and Canada. The links for both are in the description below.
In this episode, we're going to review a surprisingly popular format of the game, Two-Headed Giant. We're going to review what you'll need to know to run this event when asked at your local game store or during scheduled sides in a convention setting, as Two-Headed Giant events at pre-releases or at a larger con are very common. If you wish to go deeper on this topic or other subjects, you can delve into our extensive library at JudgeCast.com or search for us on your podcast app of choice. Our podcasts are typically at least 1 hour, so you get both more detailed discussion, humor, insight, and of course, our puerile symposiums. In this episode, we are going to cover information from the comprehensive rules and the Magic tournament rules, as well as some pointers for running a successful Two-Headed Giant event.
So, before we get into it, Two-Headed Giant is a variant of the game that's played with two teams of 2 players each. One of the reasons why it's so popular is because you get to play with a buddy, okay? Now, in that, there's going to be 2 teams, a total of 4 players at each match. Now, one of the things that's going to help as we get into the rules of Two-Headed Giant is just this little expression right here. When you're talking rules, card text, that kind of stuff, there is only one you. We're getting kind of philosophical here. There's only one you. There are 2 opponents, and there are 4 players in any match of Two-Headed Giant. Just knowing that is going to help answer a lot of questions that players might have preemptively or help you with your own understanding of cards, because there are some cards that do work a little bit differently in a Two-Headed Giant setting.
All right, with that, let's look at some comprehensive rules. Two-Headed Giant is a format that pits a 2-player team against another 2-player team. The team is treated as a single entity for several aspects of the game. Each team will be on one side of the table. This allows them to share information between themselves, like what's in their hand, basic strategies, and other decisions as they play. Now, aside from sharing information, teammates also share poison counters and life totals. Teammates should not manipulate one another's cards or permanents, though. For instance, on team non-active player, Nick shouldn't tap Nadine's cards when Nadine moves to cast a spell. Let Nadine do that herself. What isn't shared are other resources, like the cards in your hand, your mana, your libraries, and so on. From there, with your shared life total, your life total will start at 30 for both teams. Now, this shared life total can be altered when either player takes damage or has a life gain effect.
So how do y'all win or, maybe lose? Players win and lose as a team. Team active player Adam and Annie, seriously, we need to workshop these team names, can win if only one of them swings for lethal damage. If an effect doesn't allow a player to lose the game, then that player's team can't lose the game. If an effect says a player wins a game, then that player's team wins the game. If a player draws from an empty library and has no effects preventing them from losing, their team loses the game. A team will lose their game if their shared life total gets to 0, or if they get to 15 poison counters. Yes, you heard that right. I said 15 poison counters. Two-Headed Giant is the only format where a player does not lose at 10 poison counters. A team will also lose if one of them has to leave the game.
All right, so let's talk briefly about how life totals work. Damage, gaining life, losing life happens to a player, single head of my Two-Headed Giant individually, but the act affects the shared life total. The act of gaining life or losing life affects the shared life total. So, for example, there's this card called Slagstorm, and it has the text choose one. Slagstorm deals 3 damage to each creature. Not worried about that. Slagstorm deals 3 damage to each player. So if we choose that option, Adam, Annie, Nick, and Nadine are all going to take 3 damage, which means each team is going to take a total of 6 damage. All right. Same thing with each player loses 3 life. Same thing, only it's loss of life instead of damage. Whenever a cost or an effect in the game needs to know an individual's life total, then you're going to use the shared life totals instead. So for cards like Beacon of Immortality and Grievous Wounds, we can see how doubling or halving life totals work. Life totals are shared, but these spells target individual players. What do you think happens? Okay, well, Beacon's going to target a player and then double that team's shared life total. And the reverse happens with Grievous Wounds. Felidar Sovereign, for example, has the rules text of, at the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 40 or more life, you win the game. In a game of Two-Headed Giant, your starting life totals are 30, so all a team needs to do is to gain 10 life to get their shared life total up at 40, and then the Felidar Sovereign will let them win the game during their upkeep.
Now, Lurking Evil helps to demonstrate what happens when an effect asks you to halve your life. Whose life? Well, that would be the shared life total that you have. So in the example of Nick and Nadine, if their life total is at 25 and they wanted Lurking Evil to become a 4/4 horror creature with flying, they'd need to lower their shared life total to 12. Whenever a cost or effect allows both members of a team to pay life at the same time, the total amount that they choose can't exceed their shared team life total. Just like in 1v1, you can't pay more life than you have, your team collectively can't pay more life than you have. And when an effect sets a player's life total to a particular amount, then the player gains or loses life to end up at the shared life total. Now, repay in kind illustrates another important concept with shared life totals. When it says each player's life total, what it is asking in a Two-Headed Giant game is for one of the players of each team to be affected. So let's say one team has 21 life and the other has 15. Repay in kind's effect checks with one player on the team with 21 life to find the answer 21, and one player on the team with 15 life to find the answer 15. The team with 21 life then loses 6 life to reduce their life total to 15. If an effect in-game has 2 players exchange life totals, players on the same team can't do this because their life total is shared. And when an effect prevents a player from gaining or losing life, the other player on that team can't gain or lose life because, hey, you guessed it, shared life totals. It'd be awkward if you could target one or the other player to get around that restriction.
So what's interesting about Two-Headed Giant is there are also poison counters, and those are shared between the teammates. And what we just said about shared life totals, a lot of that applies to these shared poison counters. The main points that we need to go over, though, are effects causing players to receive poison counters happen individually, but the total number of counters are shared by the team. Any effect that needs to know how many poison counters a player has checks the shared number of poison counters for the team. So if a team has 8 and a check is made, then the answer comes back as 8. The same is true for the total number of poison counters an opponent has. In this case, we check the team as well. If an effect causes a player to lose poison counters, then the team loses the counters. If an effect says a player can't gain poison counters, then the team the player is on can't gain poison counters. A rule or an effect that needs to know what kinds of counters a player has will consider both counters the player has and the counters the team has. So if a player is poisoned, if their team has one or more poison counters.
So, one of the most unique aspects of Two-Headed Giant, and one of the reasons why so many people love it, is it's played using the shared team turns option. What this means is that the normal steps and phases of a turn still happen, untap, upkeep, draw, but there's 2 players sharing it. Okay, so there's one upkeep, that both players can do stuff. One draw step where both players draw a card, one main phase, two main phases, where both players can play a land. There's one combat, one instep. So how this works in practice is that teams get priority and teams get to put things on the stack, not individual players. So there's instead of an active player, non-active player, there's an active team, non-active team. Then within the team, the players get to decide, how to put things on the stack. But priority passes still happen between active team and non-active team. Okay. Now, because we're using the shared team turns option, there's another little quirk that any effect that gives a player an extra turn or an extra phase is going to give that extra turn or phase to both players on the team.
So one big thing that comes up in Two-Headed Giant that can also lead to somewhat confusing questions fundamentally comes down to who is attacking whom. Because Magic cards are templated to affect a singular defending player or refer to a singular attacking player, the cards don't necessarily explain themselves well when you have multiple attacking players and multiple defending players. So, for example, in a two-player game, you never have to specify that you're attacking your opponent specifically because it's obvious. With Two-Headed Giant, because each creature can attack any number of objects like battles and planeswalkers and players, you have to specify which player the creature is attacking, even if it doesn't seem like it matters. See why this can get a little confusing? Just like our golden rule example earlier, a lot of these combat questions can simply be put down to who specifically are you attacking with a creature for when it matters. Now, if you don't explicitly state who each creature is attacking, there is no shortcut here. You're not defaulting to a primary head or anything like that. You have to actually state who you are attacking. And if you're unsure where each creature is pointing at when you're being attacked, just ask your opponents and have them tell you then.
All right, so before we get into how to actually run a Two-Headed Giant event, because they are very different from Commander or Standard, want to have another word about how attacking and blocking works in Two-Headed Giant. Okay, now what's different, even though Adam is attacking Nick, okay, Nick's teammate Nadine may declare creatures that she controls as blockers for the creatures that Adam is attacking with. Okay, so from a Two-Headed Giant standpoint, both teammates' creatures can jump in front of the attacking creatures, even though they are attacking Nick.
Teamwork.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
All right, so next up, now that we've talked a good amount about some rule stuff, let's talk about the logistics, because Two-Headed Giant events require a few things to work a little bit differently than your traditional Friday Night Magic or your typical pre-release. So we're going to share some things to make running your first Two-Headed Giant event a little bit easier. Now, some of these are found in a supporting rules document somewhere, but there are one or two things here that are just best practices from all of us having done so many Two-Headed Giant events over the years. So before we even get to the event, the first thing you need to start actually thinking about is how you're going to set up your room. Often your local game store will have table numbers laid out. So if you're assigned to table 6, then you and your opponent each take one of the two chairs across from each other next to the table tent that says the number 6. With Two-Headed Giant, you need to add extra spacing between your table tents because each match will require 2 people per side for a total of 4. So spacing between table numbers can be really wide. In fact, in some of these larger rooms, there can be as many as 8 empty chairs before you put down another table tent for the next pair of matches. And for here, if you haven't seen them before, the table tents are usually a folded piece of cardboard that has a number on one side, a number on the next. And it's really easy to lay those out, skip a seat, and then put the next one down so you have the next table when you're doing 1v1. For Two-Headed Giant, though, you need 2 seats, and then another 2 seats, and then the tent. Then 2 seats for that first team, another 2 empty seats, and then another tent. It's a little hard to visualize, but check it out the next time you go to your local game store. See how they have the table numbers laid out and how you can lay it out for a Two-Headed Giant event, and just start getting in the practice of it for the future. So now that we've set up the room, let's get to the fun stuff. So first off, we're going to look at product distribution. Most Two-Headed Giant events give either a total of 12 packs, 6 per player, or 2 pre-release kits, which contain 6 packs each, so 6 per player. Now, there is a version of Two-Headed Giant that only requires 8 total packs per team, or 4 packs per player, but very few events are run this way because most people just expect 6 packs because they're so used to playing Two-Headed Giant at a pre-release.
Players on a team can pool their cards together to build their 2 decks. So if Nick and Nadine want to put all 5 copies of Duress they open in one deck, they can. We're not StrategyCast, remember? Sometimes players want to keep the cards that they open. You can suggest that they take a picture of the cards in their packs when they open their product. Never, ever, and I mean never ever, run Two-Headed Giant competitively. It's not designed for that, and there are a bunch of penalties in the IPG that will create a bad experience, up to and including game losses, because game losses equal match losses. Also, you know that part about fun and educational in the jar? Two-Headed Giant is designed more than almost any other format to be fun. We all define competitive Magic differently, but I think we can agree that random 2 players teaming up to play another, random 2 players, or, couple out on a date or whatever. Everybody has mixed skill levels at the table. It's a far cry from playing in an RC. Two-Headed Giant build times are longer than standard build times for a sealed event, and players get an additional 15 minutes on pre-release weekends. So be prepared to give players the time that they need to build their decks.
Now, in Two-Headed Giant matches, there's going to be chatting. There's going to be talking. There's going to be bluffing. And because of that chatting, because of that talking, because of that bluffing, no one's fooled by that bluffing, by the way, but Two-Headed Giant matches are played to the first win. There is not best of 3, first of 2 wins in this format. If you've ever played in one of these games or watched it, you're gonna understand. Okay, there are plenty of games that go to time in Two-Headed Giant. Okay. Also, when time is called at end of round, because the turns take so long, you get an additional 3 turns, not 5. If you haven't finished the round yet, and somehow your first game ends in a draw, you can start playing another game, because this is the first to 1 win. Okay. Teams should decide who the primary player is before sitting down for the match. The player on the right is considered to be the primary player, mainly because the rules have to have someone defined as the primary player in the case that nothing is said. So if there is a disagreement on what to do, the primary head, the person on the right, is the final say, is the decider in that particular case. All right, let's talk about mulligans. Mulligans work just like they do in 1v1 Magic, only instead of a player making the decision, taking turns making decisions to mulligan, the teams take turns to make mulligan decisions. So, from the CR directly, in a multiplayer game using the shared team turns option, which Two-Headed Giant does, first each player on the starting team declares whether that player will take a mulligan. Then the players on each other team in turn order do the same. Teammates may consult while making their decisions. Then all mulligans are taken at the same time. A player may take a mulligan even after a teammate has decided to keep their opening hand. So you are deciding to take mulligans independent of each other. The first mulligan taken does not count towards the number of mulligans taken, i.e., you get a freebie, because this is a multiplayer game.
So, When you find yourself as the head judge of a two-headed giant event, let's say you're on the regular REL side events team at a larger convention, and somebody says, hey, you are now the head judge of the 3 p.m. two-headed giant, here's a bullet list of some important common announcements that kind of sum up everything we just talked about. Because unless you're doing a lot of these casual events frequently, two-headed giant somehow it just ends up being one of those things that kind of falls out of a lot of judges' heads. But if you remember this should help you with your announcements. Remember, you get a free mulligan. There's no draw on turn 1, unlike Commander. Every team has a shared turn and a shared life total. This is also a great place to announce the golden rule that there are 4 players, 2 opponents, and 1 you. This is especially helpful if you expect a lot of first-time two-headed giant players like at pre-releases. And poison to kill your opponents is increased to 15 poison as opposed to 10 if that matters, or if the format has poison for some reason. Sometimes you'll have one card that has poison counters. Well, then you gotta say it. And that's about it for two-headed giant. Now, if you haven't played two-headed giant before, seriously, we really encourage you to grab a buddy and give it a shot at your next big event, or play the two-headed giant pre-release at your local game store. It is a blast. It's some of the most fun you can have playing in Magic, because you get to buddy up with a good friend of yours, or make a new friend and collaboratively work on taking down an opponent. It's so much fun. It's really a blast. So give it a shot, see what you think, and have some fun. And once again, we'd like to thank Judge Foundry for their support in sponsoring this series for helping you earn your Level 1 certification. Make sure to visit judgefoundry.org and click on the orange Become a Judge button to learn how you can join the Magic judging community in the US and Canada and earn your certification with Judge Foundry.
Join us next time as we continue our series for earning your Level 1 certification and talk about running other types of regular REL events. And if you want to reach out to us, we have our own Discord server for judges new and old, fans, and anyone who supports the judging community. The invite link to our Discord server is in the description below, as well as our JudgeCast and individual social media links. If you're a fan of our content, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel, and ring that bell to be notified when new videos in this series are posted, or when a new episode of our full podcast is released. Make sure to check out our channel's playlist for our complete L1 series, as well as a Learn to Judge playlist with episodes from JudgeCast's history focused on helping you become a better judge. And as always, you can find everything related to JudgeCast at judgecast.com. With that, I'm Charles Feather, and I keep it fair.
I'm Marcos Sanchez, and I keep it fun.
And we're Bryan Prerelease, and we play Three-Headed Giant.